Welcome everyone. My name is Teresa O'Dowd and I'm really excited to be here today for the Learn OneNote Conference 2017. Today my session is going to cover using OneNote Classroom in education for ePortfolios. So let's get started. I'm going to begin by logging into one of the schools that I work with named Ben Hill Schools. It's actually Ben Hill County Schools in Georgia. And we have been working on creating ePortfolios for our students in grades 9 through 12. So I'm just going to go ahead and log in here. Now, once I get logged into the Office 365 account for this school district, you'll notice that they have already installed for their organization this program called, or application, called Class Notebook. So if your school district is using Office 365 and your administrators have not yet installed Class Notebook, ask them to do so. We're going to go ahead and just click on the Class Notebook tile. And once we do, we'll be taken to the Welcome to the OneNote Class Notebook page. Now, to create a class notebook, we simply need to click on the tile that says Create a Class Notebook to get started. So we'll do that. And then we're going to give our class a name. Now, obviously, you can use class notebooks to create classes like, for example, for your 8th grade math class or your biology 3 class. In this case, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a student portfolio that can be used by any student in grades 9 through 12 at, in this particular case, Ben Hill County Schools. So we're going to call our class notebook by the graduation year of the student that we're creating it for. So this case, it's going to be 2020, and then I'm just going to call it Student ePortfolio. So this particular notebook is going to be good for any student in this case, probably it'd be a sophomore student. They're going to graduate in 2020. And also the teachers or vice administrators, such as a school counselor, that would be working with this group of students. We'll click the next button. And we'll see that our notebook has now been created, basically. And these are the different areas of the notebook that will exist. There will be a collaboration space, a content library, and then individual private space for each student to keep their ePortfolio. We'll go ahead and click Next. And now we're ready to start adding teachers. So in a classroom situation, you might not give another teacher permission to view the students' class notebooks. But in an ePortfolio situation, we would want to be able to do that. In particular, I'm thinking that we might want to add school counselors. We might want to add some of the teachers that are going to be working with this group of students this school year. Obviously, we could also add teachers from year to year that are going to be working with the students. So, for example, this year we might have sophomore students. Next year, when this group of students are in at the junior level, we might remove all the sophomore students and add the junior level students or junior level counselors. So I'm going to go ahead and add another teacher. And now we'll hit Next. And now we're going to add students. Now, obviously, this can be done by connecting your OneNote class notebook to an SIS or a student information system that you already have. But if you were going to have to add it manually, you would just simply start typing the email addresses of the students. And those email addresses most likely would be a part of your Office 365 system. So I'm going to go ahead and add a few students. See if we can get some students to come up here. And obviously this would be quite painful if I was having to add all of the students and there was like 500 students in this class. But if I'm only talking about adding a few students to the class, or maybe I'm adding, a small school might have 80 students in a class, a large school might have 500, 1,500 students, then I might want to talk with my Office 365 administrator about connecting the system to my SIS so those would automatically be pulled in. Once all the students are added, and obviously I would probably be adding a lot more than just 4 students, we're just going to use 4 for the demo, I would click the next button. Now at this point, I want to decide what's going to be inside each student's private space. And typically it would be sections like this, but we're going to uncheck these sections because we're not going to include these sections in our ePortfolio. Instead, we're going to create some ePortfolio sections. And I have been working with a multitude of school districts because one of the things that I do, pardon me just a second, I'm going to minimize that. That's not the file that I want. Because one of the things that I do now that I've been in education for going on 30 years, and I've actually started kind of transitioning from working at a school district to being an independent contractor. And what I do is I work with schools on integrating technology projects or integrating classroom technology features. So this school district is actually wanting us to help them put together these e-portfolios for their students, and they have created some tabs that they want them to include. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste these tabs that the principal, basically working along with her staff, developed and wants to make sure that we include. And for this demo, I'm not going to actually include all of the tabs. As you can see, she has about 7 tabs that this principal does that she wants to be included in their portfolios. But again, just for this demonstration and for your knowledge, I am just going to include these 4 tabs. And we probably won't even have time in this 30-minute session to actually complete all of these tabs, but you're going to get an idea of how it would work. Now, once we've done that, we're going to click the next button. Oh, I think I have one that says the name cannot start with a space, and I must have one that I actually got a space in. All right, let's see if that works. Okay, now that we have that, we're going to get kind of a visual here so we can confirm that the notebook looks the way we want. So this would be what the teacher would see. The teacher would see the name of the notebook, collaboration space, content area, and then the name of all of the different students that are added to that notebook. So imagine a teacher would be a teacher working with these sophomore students on their ePortfolio, or it could be a counselor. And then, of course, if we click over here to the student notebook view, this is what the student is going to see. So the student will also see a welcome, collaboration space, content library, but the student, for example, in this case, it's our first student, Alea Johnson, she does not see the other students' notebooks. She only sees the different parts of the portfolio that were created for her section. So we'll go ahead and click Create. And you will notice that over on the left-hand side, everything that I've been doing is being checked off over there. So if at any time I needed to move back to one of these sections, for example, if I needed to add some more students, I could just click back here and I could just go ahead and add another student in here if that was something that I needed to do. So I'll add one more student, just kind of show you how that works. Now we're going to go ahead and hit Create, and the notebook will be created. Now, depending on the number of students, the number of sections that you're creating in your class notebook, or in our case, our ePortfolio notebook, and also depending on the speed of your internet connection, setting up the notebook could take a few minutes. Once the notebook has been created, you will come to a screen that looks something like this. At this point, if we wanted to open the notebook, we could simply click on this tab here. Before we open the notebook, though, I do want to point your attention to this purple button or link that says Download the Class Notebook Add-in. This is kind of a new feature in class notebooks. If you're using OneNote 2013 or OneNote 2016 on your desktop computer and you want to download the class notebook add-in, you can simply click on this button. And what will happen is the add-in will be downloaded to your computer. You can then click on that executable file to run it, and you can install it. I actually already have it installed, so it's coming up asking me if I want to uninstall or repair. I don't need to do either, so I'm just simply going to close it. But typically, if you didn't have it installed, one of your choices there would be install, and you would install that. Now, why might you want to install the class notebook add-on? Well, you're going to see in just a moment, but it adds some tools to your OneNote notebook that you wouldn't normally have if you didn't download this class add-in. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and click Open in OneNote. We'll be prompted to open it in the version of OneNote we have installed on our computer. And now the notebook has been opened in our OneNote desktop application. Because it is coming from an online environment, we do get a Microsoft security notification, just making sure that we identify this as not having any potential security concerns or risks. I'm going to say yes, that I want to continue because this is a safe file. I just created it. And now we're just simply waiting for the notebook to load. We are looking at the OneNote class notebook, which as you can see is named 2020 Student ePortfolio from the teacher or counselor's point of view. So at the top we will see that Welcome tab. We also see a tab where we can add additional sections if we want to. We will see the sections that were created when we created the class notebook, the collaboration space, which is where we can add any information that we would want students to help us collaborate on. I'm going to hit this return button or navigate back to the parent section button. The content library, which is where we're most likely going to add things that we want our students to copy and paste into their own notebooks and complete for their portfolio. And then because we are logged in as the teacher, or in our case it could be the counselor, we will see a section for each one of the students that we added to our ePortfolio notebook. I'm going to click on John Bailey's name and you'll see that those 4 sections that we created, they're empty right now because John hasn't logged in and started adding content, but we can see very clearly that those 4 sections were created for John. And of course, if we clicked on any of the other students' names, like Mariah, we'd see the same sections. Now with the class notebook created, or the ePortfolio created in OneNote class notebook, the counselor or teacher can begin adding content that she's going to want her students to utilize. So the best place to begin is the content library. We'll go ahead and click on Add a Page over on the right-hand side. And then on the left-hand side, we'll type what we want this particular page in our content library to be called. So we're going to call this High School Plan. And this is where we're going to post some content as our counselor that we're going to want our students to have access to. Now, we can post the content a couple of different ways. We can click anywhere and start typing. So we could type something like sample high school plan. And then if we wanted to, we could come up here to the Insert tab. And at that point, we would be able to very quickly insert a file printout or attach a file or a spreadsheet. I'm going to click on File Printout. And I actually have some files that I had uploaded onto this computer earlier. So here we have what I've created here is a sample high school plan. So I'm going to insert that. It is a PDF file, so it will open in a PDF reader, and then it will also open straight onto the page since we attached it as a printout. So this is a page that could be used by high school students to create a sample plan. Now I'm also going to go back to insert, and I'm going to choose to insert, actually I'm going to do a file. Let me do attach a file. And I'm going to attach this 4-year high school plan template. Now I'll just go ahead and attach this as a template or as a file. And as you can see, it's down here underneath. And if I wanted to drag it up and put them side by side, all I have to do is just basically, it's going to be kind of like a text box. And I can just drag this back to the top of my page. And now I have basically created a collaboration space on this page that has, I said collaboration space, pardon me. I have created some templates that my students can use inside this library. And what will happen is when the students eventually log on and are inside their inside their folder, so we'll go to John's folder, for example. John's going to have a folder that's going to look something like this. It's going to have these different tabs in it. And let's say he goes to the high school plan and he wants to begin typing his high school plan. Well, John could just immediately start with a blank slate, but because his counselor has told him that inside, and I'll just go back here, the content library, she has attached a file or template that he can use. John could just click on this file and copy it, and then he would be able to go right back over into his notebook, go to the section called High School Library, paste that file in, and then actually open that file. And once that file is open, it's going to open up in Excel, and John could begin creating his high school plan. So let's say that he knows that in his freshman year he has to take algebra, and it's going to require 3 credits. And let's say that at the end of that semester, John comes back in and puts in those 3 credits that he earns for algebra. Then in 10th grade, John knows he's going to take geometry. And then at the end of that semester, pardon me, let me put 12 here because this is the total amount that's required for the entire math program. And then at the end of this semester, he's earned 3 credits for that. So now you can see we got a running tally over here of the number of credits John has so far for his freshman and sophomore year in math. Now, John can close this. When he does, it's going to ask him if he wants to save, and he's going to say yes. And he actually saved those changes to this file that is inside his portfolio. If at any time John wants to reopen this file, the information is still there because it was saved to his ePortfolio created in Class Notebook, which is actually being hosted on John's OneDrive. So we're going to close this. And now at this point, I want us to take a look at what this is going to look like now back on the teacher side. So I'm going to go back to the teacher side. So here we're again looking at the ePortfolio that we created either as a counselor or as a teacher. We see all the students, and you'll notice that, as I said before, we have a new tab in OneNote notebook that we've never had before on our desktop version. It's called Class Notebook. So besides putting things into the content library that students can copy and paste, now with this new tab, the teacher or the student advisor can go in and can actually distribute new pages to the notebook. So she could go in and distribute pages into the students' high school plans. She can go into sections and create new sections that she wants to appear in the students' plans. So for example, if you'll remember earlier, there was a number of sections that I wanted to have in my electronic portfolios, but I only included 4. So let's say I now wanted to add a new one called Transition Plan. I could simply go here to the Distribute New Sections, create a new section to distribute. Whoop, sorry about that. I have to put the name in there. So let me click on that, put the name in there. And then here under Location, I can actually indicate the students' names. I'll click Create. And now that new section will get created inside those student notebooks. Beyond that, inside the classroom tab, or pardon me, class notebook tab, the teacher can add additional students. So she can click on add. Notice it takes me back to the OneNote class notebook that was online. We choose that online notebook. It's an ePortfolio. And then here are the students that we currently have. And then if we wanted to add another student, we would start typing that student's email address. Maybe this is a new student that just entered. Let me find a name that we can actually search for. There we go. And then here's some names, and we could add Tristan and hit next. And we could have added more students if we wanted to. And then finally we hit update so that that will be updated into our class notebook. We'll go back to the class notebook application that's open on our desktop. And you can see that we can also add and remove teachers as well. We can also make connections. And under connections is where we can go if we wanted to connect to other programs. So maybe like a learning management system or a student information system. So you might see some here that look familiar. eSchool Data, Infinite Campus, Schoolology I think is down here. Okay. So if any of those seems to be recognizable for your school, you could make a connection with those as well. Finally, I'm going to go ahead and go back over here, and we're going to go, let me just cancel out of that because we don't want to actually make that connection. I'm going to go back in to John's folder, and you're now going to see that extra tab that we added. Now, if any time during the process you make an update and you don't see an immediate change, you can always go to the File menu, and when you do, you're going to see the notebook information for the notebook that we've been working with, the 2020 Student ePortfolio. You can click on this button that says View Synchronization or View Sync. You can actually see the last time that our notebook synchronized. If you had any other notebooks open, you would see those as well. You can sync all of them by using this button, or just sync the one that you're wanting to sync by clicking here on the button that's right beside it. They do sync automatically about every 30 to 60 seconds, so usually you won't need to do a manual sync. You will also notice that there is a URL that will lead you to that portfolio online. So if I ever wanted to get to the online version of this, really a couple of different ways I can do it. One is I can click here on this link. It takes me out of the OneNote application, desktop application, pardon me, and it takes me to OneNote Online. And now I am inside my 2020 Student ePortfolio online. So as you can see, if I bring up the desktop app, let me close this, and I'm just going to click here to go back over to a page you'll recognize. I have them both open now. In the purple here is the OneNote desktop application with our ePortfolio notebook open, and behind it with the black here is the online version. Same notebook, just different views. If I close this, now I would be working in my e-student portfolio notebook, but I would be doing it from an online perspective. Now I'm going to go ahead and close out of a couple of tabs that I have open up here, because the last thing I want to show you before we wrap up today is how I would get back to this notebook if for some reason I shut down my computer, I come back the next day, and I want to get back in. A couple of different ways I can do it. One, of course, is I can log back into Office 365, come back to the class notebook tile, click on it. Once I click on it, this time instead of creating a new notebook, I'll click over here on Manage Notebooks. And then once I do that, you're going to see that it goes right to any notebooks that I have. And I have a couple of notebooks here. So to open this notebook, I can simply click right over here and open in OneNote Online. The notebook will open up, and I'll be working in the exact same notebook, but now in my browser. If at any point I want to change to the OneNote application that's on my desktop, I can go up here to the top and click on this button that says Open in OneNote. When I do, it'll look for OneNote on my computer. I'm going to open it in OneNote 2016. It now reopens the application, and here I am. So I hope you've enjoyed this presentation today on using OneNote in the classroom or in education for student ePortfolios. I hope I've given you some ideas on how you can create an e-student portfolio that your students can utilize throughout high school. Thank you very much for joining me today and attending using OneNote in education for ePortfolios. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the Learn OneNote Conference 2017.